Alright, welcome back to the second video about damage calculation. In this one I want to explain a bit more how to use the damage calculation for your advantage and for your team building. So if you want to improve your team building, you can actually try against aim burst a lot, but there is actually a more saving way, I guess, if you use math. And I hope you already know a bit about team building and buff stacking, because I will only go briefly over it. So if you don't know how to properly use teams, I hope this video helps you a bit. And also, if you have questions, feel free to check out the Discord I mentioned in the description box and ask for assistance there. So at first, the buff stacks. It's really important that you don't over buff characters, because there's actually cap for each buff in the game. It's divided in soft and hard cap, meaning there is like a marking in the game. It's saying something nashi, so the buff didn't get applied because you have already hit the buff stack and it just vanished. So you wasted a buff, or maybe multiple buffs if you didn't pay attention at all. So that's one thing you keep an eye out for. And the so-called soft and hard caps is, the hard cap is the nashi cap, or where the value is lost. And the soft cap is, at this point you can only apply one more buff before it gets nashi triggered. There is an exception, which is the critical damage, because multipliers itself are also capped to 2.5, and in theory you could bring your critical damage higher, because the nashi thingy doesn't trigger for whatever reason, but it gets cut off if you go higher than 2.5. And that's the understanding about buff caps. Now the next thing is, with damage calculation and research, you can also understand specific ultimates better, like how strong is percentage-based damage against enemy boss HP, or a stack-based ultimate character. Which one is stronger? Well, without doing research and data, you won't know. So it's also a thing which you can do with damage calculation. So one thing I need to mention first before I go into the document is math basics. So you can optimize the buff on one character that you reach the buff cap. So let's say you apply small, small, medium, medium, those for buffs for attack damage, then you reach a multiplier of 2. But if you use instead small and medium to only get to 1.5 multiplier and can guarantee a crit, you have 1.5 from the buffs and 1.5 from the crit, which in total is 2.25, which is way more than you got with those 4 buffs. So that means combining different kind of buffs is more valuable than maxing out 1 or 2 kind of buffs. Alright, that's all I have to say about the basics. Let's check out the document. So right here you see general overview, which isn't that important. Let's start with the calculation template. Here's an example I posted in the document for the calculation. I have an aura char here, I have the 5.1 with a special passive, and I also use Neff for more buffs. So I have mix of all here. I have matching color bonus, I have aura, I have passives, I have a buff, and I have a skill. So this is a bit combined with a bit of effort to actually get all those numbers, do the math and so on. and in the end I got a total of 22,000 after the skill. This is like an example how to use it. Check out my other video where if you want to know more about how do I get those numbers. Then there's resistance formula, I also mentioned in the other video. There is not much known about it so far because it's really hard to understand and get an idea how could this work. The only thing which I know is that you do at least 1 damage. You have like a kind of cap. If your attack damage right here before the resistance calculation is 100 times higher than the enemy resistance, the resistant value gets deducted as it is. If it's less than 100 times, you lose more damage. And if it's around equal, you deal like half of the damage. Like if your calculated damage is around the same value as the enemy resistance, you deal roughly half of the damage. This is all I know about the resistance calculation. So the final thing is the damage formula minus the resistance formula, which is like the usual thing you do. Afterwards there's a color bonus, critical damage, color attribute down, and a damage card debuff if you have those applied. I'm not 100% sure how this one is added to the formula because of the little data I got for this, but if you have done some own tests and better understanding, let me know in the comments or write in the Discord that I can add to the document later. And yeah, as a note in between, if you do your own testing, watch out for fractal numbers because sometimes it's rounding, sometimes it's just cutting off the numbers after the commata, so keep this in mind. Alright, I also put down in the bottom some stats which you can use for your own tests, but you can also validate them on your own if you do it like I showed in the other video. Let's talk about things from the document. So, first the passives. There are different kinds of passives. The auras I already mentioned in another video. You have the medium aura, which has a 4 stat increase, an 8 stat increase for the large aura, and if you fight against a certain color, let's say I have a red Nev and I fight against green, I get an additional 8, meaning I have a total of 20 stats for each point in the aura, which adds a lot of stats actually, and is not to underestimate. The auras also apply if the character is in the backline and your other characters get the aura which are currently fighting. Mental and physical attack up. As mentioned here, if it's just mentioning you get an attack up, it's +5. And if it's combined passive, which like bonus against Excite, gain SP or gain something else with a fixed value, you only get +3. And if you combine it with another stat passive, like the new Dragon Fest Toma, it's only +2. If you check out the assist, like let's say pair it with another science type character, you get actually large +6 stats. Then there's HP up, which is also known. It's +6. For medium, if it's combined +4 and large is +8. Then the interesting part is the fixed value passives. Those are directional passives. Let's say if you attack the front character or the left character, you get 10%. Bonus against a certain side like science or magic, you get a bonus of 10%. There was a power creep starting earlier in 2022 where the passives got to raise to medium some, so you deal additional damage. So keep an eye out if you are having small or medium against X-side passives. There's the overlay bonus. So let's say you have a Celestina and you overlay with a matching character type. The Celestina get a 20% bonus. which is pretty nice. There are other modifiers mentioned here. You already should know the matching character bonus. Battle and assist is only 5%. If you attack with a color advantage, let's say you have a blue character and attack a red enemy, you get another factor of 1.5. If you attack with a color disadvantage, let's say you're using a green character against a red one, your damage gets reduced and multiplied with a 2 to a 0.6. If you're having a super color advantage, you get a 1.2 factor. The super color disadvantage is not known yet because of a lack of sample data. So if you use Red Toma, the dragon Red Toma against the test stage 1.5, you can actually calculate the 1.2. The super color is applied pretty late in the damage formula, so it's really strong. If you attack into the breakpoint, you get a factor of 2, which is also really strong. And those buff tiles on the battlefield apply a small buff. That's all known about the passives. For the buffs itself, it's pretty easy. So if you just have the skill, you only get the percentage amount. But if you raise the skill, there's also a bonus amount which gets added. Let's say you have a skill level of 11, then you get deduct -1 because you already got the starting point level 1 is for unlocking the skill. And then you have 10 left times small, medium or large buff for another bonus values in the formula. There is critical damage up. As mentioned, there is a cap at 100 because there is the normal critical damage is already 150% or 1.5 factor. So if you add another 100 with a medium and a large buff, you are hitting the cap with 250% already. Same is for the mental and physical buffs. We have small, medium, large. Usually small and medium add up to large together, which works for most of the buffs. For whatever reason, the defense buffs are always the same. At least what I could actually calculate. The difference between small, medium and large are only the bonus you get from the skill level. But everything else is consistent 30%. And now for the last part, talk about the damaging abilities. We have skill damage, which is actually not 1, 2, 3, but 2, 4 and 6 for small, medium and large bonus. And you have a factor 0.8, 1 for medium, large 1.2. That's also important because if you have to decide if you want to do a normal attack or using a skill, just for the damage, you should calculate if it makes a difference. Usually, if you have a medium damage skill, you should always use it because you get some bonus damage. Let's say you have skill 100, you get 400 damage more at least than you would do with a normal attack. And for the special ultimates, it's the same. You have 2, 4, 6, but it's also massive, which gives 8 bonus damage, which is factor 2. And for small, medium and large, instead of going from 0.8, you have 1.25 as a starting point. So now it gets a bit complicated because there is an SP modifier, but there's also special SP multipliers. So how do this work? The modifiers are usually like below half HP, if your character has full HP, if you attack a certain side, and those are trigger conditions. If those are fulfilled, you get another modifier factor to your ultimate calculation. Let's say you have a further increase for Festival Misaka, this is factor 1.1. If it's greatly increased like Terestina or near Misaka, you get 1.2. There is actually a greatly increase for the Blue Aqua if he has low HP, I think. and this is 1.2 times 1.1. And then there are the stack-based SP characters, which are a bit complicated to understand. Like you have Dress Misaka, Ice Salome, or AAA Misaka. Those are all stack-based, and the stack brings a value for them. There's also a little hint in the text, in the description, which hints toward a small or medium increase. And the Dress Misaka, because she's aura, I think only has 0.025 per stack, and the Ice and Salome have 0.05. Meaning, if you reach the maximum amount of stacks, you have a stack factor of 1.5, for example, for Ice, when she has 10 stacks. Which is pretty high. If you have a massive and 10 stacks, you have factor 3 for the ultimate, which is pretty big. So there are also special SP multipliers, which are mostly HP based so far. Like the enemy has more HP, the character has more HP, or the character has little HP. Because those are, let's say, dynamically calculated. Let's say Fest Fiyama, you have 0.75. If the enemy has a maximum HP, you deal 1.75. No, it's actually 2 plus 0.75, which is pretty big. And then you have Fest Kuku, which is pretty weak. If you have maximum HP, you only get 1.2, and the reverse one for Fest Ganha is like if he has 1 HP left, you only do factor 3 in total for the SP. So for the calculation itself, if you have an ultimate with a modifier, you use factor 2 times the modifier. If you have the special SP multipliers, you don't use any of those, you just use this. So you have 2 plus, or if it's large, you have 1.75 plus. So don't use factor 2 times those. It's, as it's mentioned here, just use this. Alright, that's the basic thing about calculation. I want to briefly go into this one right here. Yes, and the order matters. You really, for team building, you want to get your stats up as high as possible at first, because you want to apply as many factors as possible. So when you have here 10,000 already, and then you have the matching character bonus, the buffs, the passives, skills, SP modifier, whatever, it's adding really up really fast. So it's really important to have big base stats and also big multipliers in the calculation. Alright, I think that's the main stuff from the document. Yes, that should be all I have to say for now about damage calculation. There is a really big open world, I have to say, which you can discover, because it's not completely researched and the game dev doesn't release the formulas. So there's way more to discover, not only the assistance calculation, but other things I mentioned earlier or in the other video. So if you're interested in doing your own research, please do so, and I hope you can learn a thing or two about the game. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope I see you in another one.